Welcome, friends. Come sit with me for a while. Today we're going to walk through the most beautiful and hopeful story ever told. The story that stretches from the very first moment of creation all the way to the promise of a perfect future. It's a story filled with love, wonder, courage, forgiveness, and the faithful pursuit of God for every one of us. Look at this image. Imagine the very beginning. Before anything existed, there was only God, full of power and love. Then, with a word, light burst into the darkness. He shaped the skies, gathered the seas, brought forth the land, and filled everything with life. Plants, creatures of the sea and sky, and animals of every kind. And at the center of it all, he created humanity with special care, breathing his own life into us so we could walk with him in perfect harmony. Picture the beauty of that first garden, a place of peace where the first man and woman lived without fear or shame, surrounded by every good thing. Yet in that same garden, a moment of choice changed everything. A serpent whispered doubt, and when that first bite was taken, sin and separation entered the world. But even then, in the midst of sadness, God showed kindness. He covered their shame and spoke the very first promise, that one day a descendant would come who would defeat evil and bring hope back to all people. Time passed, and the world grew heavy with wrongdoing. Yet one man named Noah stood out because he walked faithfully with God. He built a great ark as God instructed, and when the flood came to judge the earth, his family and the animals were kept safe inside. When the waters finally went down, a beautiful rainbow appeared in the sky, God's own sign that he would never again destroy the earth with a flood. It was a reminder of mercy after judgment. Not long after, people tried to build a tower to make a name for themselves. God confused their languages so they would spread out across the earth as he had asked. Then, in a faraway city, God called a man named Abraham. "Leave your home," he said, "and go to the land I will show you. I will bless you, and through you all the families of the earth will be blessed." Abraham believed and obeyed, even when the promise of a son seemed impossible in his old age. That son, Isaac, arrived just as God said, a beautiful picture that nothing is too hard for the Lord. The story continues through the family line. Jacob with his dream of a stairway reaching to heaven, and his son Joseph, who was betrayed by his brothers yet rose to save many lives in Egypt. "You meant evil against me," Joseph later told them gently, "but God meant it for good." The whole family found refuge there, but years later their descendants faced hard slavery. Then God raised up Moses, from a baby rescued from the river to a man standing before a bush that burned without being burned up. Moses heard God say, "I am who I am," with signs and wonders, plagues that showed God's power over Egypt's gods, and the protection of the Passover lamb's blood. God led his people out of slavery with a mighty hand. They crossed the sea on dry ground while the waters stood like walls beside them. In the wilderness he fed them with bread from heaven and gave them the 10 Commandments so they could learn to live holy and just lives as his treasured people. The journey continued with Joshua leading the people into the promised land. Walls fell at Jericho not by swords but by faith and obedience. Later came the time of the judges, men and women like Deborah, Gideon, and Samson whom God raised up to deliver his people when they cried out. In the middle of those days, a quiet story of loyalty shines. Ruth, a foreigner, chose to stay with her mother-in-law and said, "Your God will be my God." Her faithfulness led her into the family line that would one day bring forth King David. David, the shepherd boy who faced a giant with only a sling and trust in God, became a great king. He brought the Ark of God to Jerusalem with dancing and joy. Though he faced failures and sorrow, his heart stayed tender toward God, and he wrote many beautiful songs of worship and repentance. His son Solomon asked for wisdom above all else and built a magnificent temple where God's presence filled the space so powerfully that the priests could hardly serve. After Solomon, the kingdom divided, and God sent prophets to call the people back. Elijah, who saw fire fall from heaven. Elisha, who performed many acts of kindness and healing. When the northern kingdom fell and later Judah was taken into exile in Babylon, faithful hearts like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood firm. They faced fiery furnaces and lions' dens, yet saw God's protection. In the exile, visions came, dry bones coming back to life, promises of a new covenant written on hearts. Exactly as prophesied, after 70 years the people were allowed to return. They rebuilt the temple and the walls of Jerusalem with courage, even while holding tools in one hand and weapons in the other. Ezra taught the law, Nehemiah led the rebuilding, and hope began to stir again. Then came 400 years of waiting, a quiet time when the world seemed silent, but hearts were preparing for the greatest chapter yet. Friends, every image we've seen carries pieces of this same thread. God creating with love, humanity choosing wrongly yet being pursued with mercy, promises kept across generations, deliverance from slavery and exile, and faithful people who trusted even when the way was hard. The whole story whispers one beautiful truth. The God who began everything has never stopped reaching out to bring us back to himself. He covers shame, forgives failure, turns what was meant for harm into good and keeps every promise. From the garden to the rainbow, from the parted sea to the rebuilt walls, we see again and again that his love is patient, his power is real, and his plan is always moving toward restoration and hope. As you look at these pictures, let them remind you that you are part of the story too. The same God who spoke light into darkness, who kept Noah safe, who called Abraham, who delivered Israel, and who spoke through prophets, that same God knows your name and invites you to walk with him. May these images stir wonder in your heart, strengthen your trust, and fill you with quiet confidence that the greatest story ever told is still unfolding, and it ends in perfect joy, where every tear is wiped away and God's people from every nation live in his presence forever. Thank you for walking through this journey with me. May the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all who have trusted him bless you with faith, courage, and hope today.